All right, welcome everybody to week 3, day 2. Today we're going to be talking about the simple calculator assignment that just got graded. The grades should all be up in Canvas for you already. I was typing that in while playing Black Sabbath Sign of the Southern Cross, with of course Ronnie James Dio fronting it at the time, in between Ozzy fronting it. So about 80% of the students got 100% on the assignment or close to it. There was a good chunk of students that got like 7s or 8s out of the 12 test cases, and then a fair number of 0s and did not compiles. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about first today, which is that if your code's not compiling, you're getting an error message. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be displaying something. Like if we look at Crente's code, CD simple calculator. If we look at Crente's code, if we try compiling his code, he didn't write it. So it prints an error message. And if you don't know what the error message means, which is normal, C++ is kind of famous for having horrible cryptic error messages. Here it's saying /user/bin/ld blah 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 scrt1.0. I know what this means, but there's absolutely no reason that any student in CSI 40 should know what this means. And function start, where the hell is start? I don't see start. Undefined reference to main. Okay, so what's going on here is that you didn't write main. But it doesn't print a nice error message saying, you didn't write main. You get this bit of garbage here. So what I want you all to do in the future for all programming assignments on the server is A, get started soon enough that if you're going forward and you're getting a compiler error message and you don't know what it means, you can screenshot it, post it onto the Help Center. One of the various people, Min Corrali is also a new tutor. He works in the TC now. Crente, then there's Hazelton, who's hanging out with us. He's a really smart dude who's a alumni, and also I guess technically not an alumni because he's in game development right now, which is awesome. Myself, I'm up at various times of the day. And then your fellow peers. Like there's a lot of support available for you guys. And I want you to really understand that if your code's not compiling, don't do the high school thing. The high school thing is like, I'll just do it all myself and it'll all work out and I'll get an A. I can just figure it out on my own. And in computer science, there's going to be times where you just literally don't know what the hell is happening here. You know, and sometimes it's your fault. Most of the time, though, it's just something like this, where it's just like dot. Good name. Where is SCRT? You know, like this isn't your fault if you don't understand this. You know what I mean? Like this is very much a problem with the compiler. I would say the compiler has failed in its duty to notify you that you're just missing main. Like there's no main. You know. LD returned 1 exit status. Maybe you understand that now, right? Because I've talked about how main returns 0 if it's successful or 1 if it's a failure, right? What the hell is collect 2? You know, what happened to connect 4? I don't know. You know what I mean? So don't beat yourself up if you don't get it. But the key thing is start on the assignment when you get it and go as far as you can. And you'll probably get stuck at some point. Maybe not on every assignment, but at some point you'll get stuck and there'll be an error message you don't understand or the code's not working properly. Then screenshot it, post it onto the Help Center, and somebody will help you 24/7. There's a 2-hour period between about 6 and 7, 8 in the morning, where computer science people are comatose. Other than that, you can get help at 3 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock in the morning. Like there's going to be somebody available to help you with the assignment. So I really don't want to see any do not compiles in the auto grader, although some of them were from students that dropped out. So okay, fair enough, they dropped. That's fine. And then if you're getting a 0 on the assignment, so that means your code compiles, but it's not running correctly. And so I'd like to run through the don't procrastinate on Zybooks either. That's due on Friday. It's 300 something points. Like it's a lot of Zybooks to get through, and we'll have to talk about Chars today. I think one of the questions on Zybooks involves Chars, so we'll talk about that today. But yeah, don't wait till the last minute on that either. You know, there's no late assignments accepted for Zybooks. The deadline's the deadline. I showed a little bit of mercy on the first one just because I know how like new semester for a lot of you it's your first computer science class. Some people have trouble getting the access code, so I was actually kind of merciful on the first one a little bit. But yeah, by and large, like the deadline for Zybooks is the deadline. You know the deadline way in advance. It's up to you to pace it out. You know what I mean? You're in college. Do a chunk at a time. Trust me on this. If you wait till like 2 minutes before the Zybooks, you're not going to get 300 something points done in 2 minutes. You're going to blow past the deadline. So yeah, so for the next homework assignment, start early, go until you get blocked, get help on it, and then there's the input tester available. Does anybody want me to look at their simple calculator source code? All of you should have your grades up on Canvas now if you didn't get a perfect grade. Actually, let's show you what it looks like. First of all, you can also check your grade here on the server. So if you type Alpine, that is the command for mail on the server. We have an on-server mail. You can send mail to each other on the server. It's aliased down to P if you want. If you don't want to type Alpine, you can type P. And when you launch it for the first time, there will be a splash screen that comes up. Hit E to get out of the splash screen. And then you're in this thing, hit up arrow and down arrow to pick different things. What you want to pick is message index. And then it will show you all the emails that you have. So I've graded it twice. I graded it once for the 12 o'clock class, once for the 2 o'clock class. Maybe I should split the rosters, I don't know. But you're probably going to get the thing graded twice just because, I don't know. I just have them all in one file. Maybe I should split them. I don't know. We'll see. I might modify that so you don't get 2 emails. So anyhow, what does it mean? So you're going to get an email saying homework simple calculator results. You hit return and it said final score is 0. If you get 12 out of 12, it'll say final score 12 out of 12. Congratulations. And that's it. You don't get anything else. If, however, you got not a perfect score, what's going to happen is it will send a follow-up email showing why your code wasn't perfect. So if you hit N for next, boop, here is the reason why Corrente's code was not perfect. That's the error message we just saw in this directory. SCRT1, undefined reference domain. There you go. So if your code didn't compile, it'll tell you why your code didn't compile, and you get a 0. There's a code that doesn't compile is worth no points in real life and in my class. So I do try to have my class mimic real life as much as they're not going to give you a week to write simple calculator in real life, but set that aside. For now, I do try to give you realistic situations and realistic homework assignments and model. A lot of the homework is based on my own experience in the professional world, and I give problems that are kind of similar to problems I've done, scaled to your skill level and stuff like that. So, if you does anybody want me to take a look at their simple calculator? The previous class had like 6 people want me to look at their code. Stover, okay. So become Stover. So we go into Alpine. We see that Stover got 12 out of 12. All right, well. Okay, so Stover probably was not surprised by his grade because if he ran the input tester, he would see that he got 12 out of 12 test cases passed. This is what you want to see. There are no surprises in this class when it comes to grades. You will know what grades you're going to get on a homework assignment prior to the thing being submitted. It's not one of the things where you submit it to the professor and 3 weeks later comes back as a C because even though it works right, you didn't consider this one edge case and because you didn't like your variable names. No, none of that. None of that here. You will know with pretty good certainty, not perfect certainty, pretty good certainty, what your grade's going to be. And the reason why I don't say perfect certainty is because my test cases are slightly different. I changed the numbers in them a little bit. So you can't just hard code the answers in. So yeah, Stover knew that he was getting a 12 out of 12. Congratulations. And if you check the email, 12 out of 12. Portnov. All right, let's take a look at Portnov. All right, cd into simple calculator, g++ main.cc. Code compiles fine. 2 + 2 is indeed 4. Input tester. Aha! So when you do not see test case passed, that means your code is incorrect. And like I said on Monday, part of computer science is the ability to be precise. If your specification, if you're working for the Defense Department and you're building point defense systems on aircraft carriers, which a friend of mine is doing, former student, now a friend, is doing, working on defense systems for the aircraft carrier, and the defense system is supposed to output this to indicate, it is jammed or something, and you don't output it, it will not interoperate with the rest of the systems, and bad things will happen. You know what I mean? And so part of computer science is creative and being able to do your own thing and express yourself and all that stuff. And I'm a big believer in creativity. Also, a big part of it is being able to be precise. And if there is a specific output that needs to be met, you need to be able to meet that output. Exactly. So in cases like this, I will not penalize you, Mr. Portnov. You will get 12 out of 12, unless you fail some of the test cases for like legitimate reasons. I don't beat up students for having typos and things like that. Yeah, that's wrong. Okay, so it's not 12 out of 12 there. And then that one's wrong as well here. Okay, so you got 10 out of 12, so it's 100%. All right, so yeah, so basically when you run the input tester, that's your output, this is my output, and just change the code to have it conform. So if I was in Tim's shoes there, I would come in here. Oh, he's already changed it. Okay, G++, main.cc, and then the tester here. No, he didn't compile it. G++. Oh, it's the second one. Right there. Okay. So now if we run the input tester, test case pass, except for the last two. Okay. So what happens in cases like that is if you check the Alpine, like for example Tim's Alpine, if we go into here and go into the message index, it says you got a 0 to 12, and an email will follow. You didn't get a follow-up email. Weird. I'll have to look into that. There might be a problem with the autograder then. Normally it sends you a diff file that shows you the difference in the two, but basically it's the same thing as this. It shows you the difference in what was expected versus what you got. So if it was something like a typo like that, or you misspelled multiply or something, which happens all the time on this assignment, send me a message on Discord and I will manually regrade your grade. I don't beat up students for simple typos and things like that. However, if you got a test case wrong, the test case is wrong. My mercy only extends so far. Now, in our class, there is a system called last chance. So if you got a 0 on this assignment, or if you got a 4 out of 5, which I would not use your last chance on, once during the semester, you can turn in an assignment 1 week late. I highly recommend not using it on the very first assignment that's worth that's half credit. Okay, this is a half credit assignment. Don't, just take your 0. It's going to tank your grade until more points come in. It's not a big deal. It's 5 points out of 100 or something in this class, something like that. But I mean, if that matters to you, then for just that section, so it's 5% of your programming assignment grade, something like that. So if you do want to last chance it, which I don't recommend, if you do want to, you have a week to do it. And what you do is you rewrite your code, and you go into the tutorial center. The tutorial center does a code review on your code, and they look at your code and offer you suggestions on improving it, things like that. The tutor then messages me on Discord. I regrade it by hand, and you get the new points. You can do this once during the semester. And so I'd recommend using it on a full programming assignment, not a half one. When does the free response for competency exams get graded? Your competency exam grades, we'll talk about in just a second. So, yeah. So the autograder will tell you in advance what your grade is going to be. Basically, just you look at it and you're like, all right, I passed 10 out of 12. Cool, that's my grade. It's I'm pretty transparent. Zybooks, same thing. As you go do the Zybooks, you'll see points accumulate in Canvas because it's linked. I linked the Canvas and the Zybooks together, which was not necessarily the easiest thing to do, but I feel it was worth it for my students, So you can just see your grade and it'll go up as you do it. Yeah, basically there shouldn't be any surprises in this class. The only thing you can't retake are the daily quizzes. And yeah, basically. Because even the competency exams you can retake, kind of. So before we get on to the competency exams, I do want to talk about the quizzes. I was going through the quiz responses today and noticed that a fair number of students have missed like 1 or 2 or something like that. If you miss 6 quizzes, because they're your attendance for this class, if you miss 6 quizzes, you're dropped from the class. So even if you don't know the answers, just like take it and get a 0, and that counts as it being present. You know what I mean? So please don't. There was a situation last year where I dropped a student because he took none of the quizzes, did none of the work in the class, and I'm like, all right, you get dropped, and he got mad because he got fired from his job for not having enough units. I'm like, I'm sorry, but you didn't do anything. If you didn't want to get fired, all you had to do was submit a blank quiz. You know, ever. You know what I mean? Like, he literally did no work and then was upset when he got dropped. So, you know, I'm sorry. I felt bad, but at the same time, it's like, you know, you didn't do anything. So, yeah. And then I think he went on to rate my professor and gave me a bad review after that. So. Okay. I was confused about not CN. Why does not CN check if variables are ints, but CN itself doesn't check keyboard input? So let's take a look at the code. So this line here, what does that mean? So when you have a CN double right arrow into path, what that means is that C++ is going to read keystrokes from the input buffer. So if you whack keys on the keyboard, all of those things go into what's called an input buffer. There are characters waiting to come out when you do a CN. And so when you do a CN statement, it reads one character at a time from the input buffer. And so if you typed in 1, 2, 3 and hit return, it'll read the 1, it'll read the 2, it'll read the 3, it'll read the return character. It's like, oh, okay. So 1, 2, 3, so that's 123. It converts 123 into an integer and it sticks it into path. Okay? So what happens though if in the input buffer, instead of 1, 2, 3 return, you typed ABC return? It reads an A, reads a B, reads a C, reads an enter. It's like, okay, let's convert ABC into a number O. O. I don't know how. So it can't. ABC is not a number. And so what happens is that internally CN sets the fail bit. The fail bit is a Boolean that says an error occurred. All future CN statements fail at that point. If you do any more CNs, all of these will fail. It'll just drop through without even reading anything. It just, no fail bit set. All future CN statements fail. And you can check to see if the fail bit is set with this. What this is doing here, it's the equivalent of if CN dot failed. If a failure has occurred in any CN above me, then output bad input. Now the problem with Portnoy's code here is that he's printing bad input, but he's not returning 0. Right? So you need to both print bad input and quit at the same time. And he also needs to have up here if not CN, right? So after every single CN statement, put a bad input and quit. Okay. If a failure occurred, in professional coding, we'll recover from it, etc. And we don't technically use CN very often in professional code anyway, but we don't like quit usually. But for where you're at right now, just handle it, you know? Like, there's an error. Okay, report an error occurred, terminate, good enough. Okay. What does return 0 do? That is, so main is a function that returns an integer. That's what that there means. And the number that it returns is the error code reported back to the operating system. So for example, when we saw that Carente's code had that LD reported error code 1, that was returned right there with a 1. And so an error code of 0 means no error code. No, there's no error. An error code of 1 means an error occurred. Is that used by anything? Not by default. Not by default. So by default, the error codes are completely neglected by the operating system. Somebody has to be paying attention to it. So for your homework assignment, it really doesn't matter if you return 0 or 1. It is getting neglected. But if you want, you can put a return 1 in there instead of return 0 because an error occurred. All right. So When we use return 1 to indicate an error, yeah. But my auto grader doesn't look at it. So technically, returning 1 is better than returning 0. If you want to be fancy, you can return exit underscore failure in all caps. And that's the number 1, just with more letters. It's the number 1 with more steps, to paraphrase Rick and Morty. So 0 is exit success, 1 is exit failure. All returns must all match. All returns must be a integer. If you're returning something from main, you have to return an integer because we promised we're going to return an integer. If that's too much to memorize, just always return 0 from main. You'll be fine. So, yeah. So every time you do a CN statement, get into the habit of vetting it. Always get into the habit of testing for errors. It's something that I harp on a lot in this class, and as a result, I feel like my students write pretty good code. Whereas a lot of the code I see online, like if you type in anything wrong, if you introduce a squirrel when it's expecting an integer, the whole thing explodes. It falls into infinite loops. It prints infinite things to the screen. Like, it's just embarrassing, honestly. Yeah. So, did everything learned then in the Help Center last night. A little off topic. Why do you use single quote instead of double quote? So, we need to talk about the competency exams. We need to talk about Char. Let's make a note of this somewhere. Vim to-do list. We need to talk about cheating, competency exams, and Chars and loops. This is our agenda for today. Okay. So, you guys pick. we got 40 minutes. Which one do you want to talk about? Do you guys understand the homework thing, though? You're going to be getting a new homework assignment today, and what I'd like for you to do is to new homework. You will see that you now have a folder called triangle testing. So that was our lab assignment from last Friday. It has now been expanded and moved around a little bit, and a little more hard. You have until Monday to do this homework assignment, not a week. Monday, because I've already given you lab time to work on it. So if you go into a triangle testing folder, you will see that there are two README files. One is for CSci 40, the other is for CSci 41 second semester. I actually do this assignment twice with different purposes to it. So obviously, you want to read that one. If you're curious why it says REAMD instead of README, that's a Neil Stephenson reference. There's a great book that he wrote called REAMD. So, for this assignment, you are actually going to be doing your work here. You're not going to be doing your work in main. I've actually written main for you. For all of you that had issues getting the output to look right and the input and all that kind of stuff, you don't need to mess with main. The only thing you need to do in main is delete the return 0 there. The return 0 there is just to keep students who do no work whatsoever on the assignment from getting any points. Because by default, this code will always say, that triangle is an equilateral. 3, 4, 5, that's an equilateral triangle. 1, 1, 1, that's an equilateral triangle. -5, 7, 22, that's an equilateral triangle. And so I stuck this in here so that if you've done literally no work on the assignment whatsoever, you'll get 0 points. By deleting this line, you're going to get at least 1 point on the assignment because there are some of the test cases that are in fact equilateral. So if you don't want to do the assignment, you just want a free pickup of a point, delete the return 0, done. Done. It's very simple. Return equilateral for everything. Exam, competency exam. Yeah, okay. We'll get to that. Okay, so you are going to be doing your homework in this function here called triangle tester, okay? And so all your code, all your experience from working in main applies here. You're just going to be doing it inside of here instead of in main. And you're given 3 variables. You're given a variable side 1, a variable side 2, and a variable side 3. You can use it like this. If side 1 equals side 2, and side 2 equals side 3, right? So these are 3 variables that are passed to the function, and you can just use them like a variable. You don't have to declare them. They're just given to you. And what you're going to do is say, if a squared plus b squared, if side 1 times side 1 plus side 2 times side 2, double equals side 3 times side 3, return right. And you might be like, where did that thing come from? That's a weird thing. Where did that come from? Well, don't worry about it. Just know that there are these variables defined. One's called equilateral, one's called isosceles, one's called right, one called other, one called error. And so you're going to be returning either equilateral or isosceles or right or other or error, as that's what your homework assignment is, to return equilateral or isosceles or right or other. And then my main that I wrote for you is going to print out the thing. This is impossible. Right? So your code should be, I don't know. It's hard to say how many lines of code it is. Because these are not passed in sorted order. So rather, in lab on Friday, you were given 3, 4, 5 in that order for a triangle. For this one, the hypotenuse might be side 1, it might be side 2. You don't know. So you're going to have to do a little more work on it than what we had in lab time. You can't just use your lab code, but that's a good place to start. Okay. So you are going to look at the values passed in, figure out if it's a valid triangle or not. The rule for figuring out if something's a valid triangle is pretty simple. The sum of two sides can't be shorter than the other side, or is it the other way around? Let's see. 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so a 3, 4, 5 triangle is possible. A 3, 4, 50 triangle is not possible. Right? So, because 3 plus 4... Yeah, it can't be shorter than the other side. Okay. So, so you're going to have to test for that, and you might try all 3 possibilities for a right triangle. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, a squared plus c squared equals b squared, b squared plus c squared equals a squared. You can try all 3 if you want, or you do something fancy, like you could sort the variables so that they're smallest to greatest. I think that's actually one of your Zybooks assignments, is to do that, to take 3 variables and to sort them from least to greatest, and then that might make some of your your coding a little bit simpler down below. It's up to you. So triangle testing is actually a class in computer science assignment. This assignment is given in computer science institutions all over the country, and so it's a good benchmark to see if you can kind of figure out if statements and things like that. The sum of any 2 sides must be greater than the length of the third side. Yeah. Sounds right to me. Okay. And so you're going to return one of these things. You guys understand? And even if you don't know what the hell an enum is, because I'm not going to explain it to you guys because it doesn't matter. I'm doing this for a reason. All you have to do is look at how I've done my code and then base your code on how I've done my code. Okay? So, so if it's an equilateral triangle, I return equilateral. So how do you think you want to return if something's isosceles? Well, return isosceles like that, So if, I don't know, if side 1 equals side 2, something like that, that's how you'd return something's isosceles. So you look at how I do it, and then you modify it. That's the big thing for computer science. The big thing for computer science is you look at how other people have done code, and you figure out how to code from how other people have done code. That's the best way of learning, is to see somebody else do it, something similar, and then adapt. Okay, well, all right. If that's how you return an equilateral, then I just change that to right, to return a right triangle. Okay. Why are we writing the code above main? Because main is not the only place you can write code. We haven't learned functions yet, but again, this is a test of your ability to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Right. So you're basically given 3 variables. You're given side 1, side 2, side 3. This is how you can use them. If side 1 equals side 2 and side 2 double equals side 3, return equilateral. Okay. So you just passed 3 variables. These exist. You don't have to declare them. They're given to you. And then you're going to just look at those 3 variables and figure out, is it right triangle, left triangle, center triangle? Okay. Enum, never used it before. Yeah. But, you can look it up if you want, but it doesn't matter. Basically what this thing is doing is making a variable called equilateral and setting the value to 0. It's making a variable called isosceles and setting the variable to 1. It's making a variable called right, setting the value to 2. kind of what's happening behind the scenes. It's a little more compact. So, yeah, so don't modify main at all. Just delete, other than deleting that line, and then write some code in here. So Min Corelli says it's 6 or 8 lines of code, something like that. 6 to 10. Okay. So that is your next homework assignment, due on Monday. And I'd like for you to get started now, so that if you get blocked, you can ask for help during lab on Friday. This lab on Friday is not going to be on triangle testing. That was last week's lab. But if you have any questions, I will very happily answer them then. So that's an opportunity, right, for you to get unstuck. So start working on it now. If you get stuck, if you don't understand something, like what is an enum or whatever, you can ask during the lab on Friday. Okay. The single greatest risk of failure in computer science is putting off to the last minute an assignment, getting stuck, and getting a 0 on the assignment. That's really the only way of failing this class. If you start early, you will be able to get help and overcome pretty much any challenge in this class. It's just all time management. Like literally, space out your work, and it's really, really hard to fail in this class. You kind of, yeah. I'm not gonna say it's impossible or anything like that. It does require work, you know. And if you don't do the work, you'll fail. But as long as you time manage properly and do the work, you'll be fine. Okay, so let's talk about other stuff. So the new homework is due Monday at 2 p.m. for those of you in the 2 p.m. class, and 12 o'clock for those of you in the 12 o'clock class. Cheating. So there is a cheat checker on the server. I do not run it on Triangle Tester or Simple Calculator, so plagiarize to your heart's content. No, don't. But, you know, the programs are so simple, like there's no point running a plagiarism detector on it because it just turns up this code's 80% similar to this code. Great, you know, whatever. But for more complicated homework assignments, yeah, the plagiarism detector we have is fairly sophisticated. It was written by a former TA of mine, and then last summer I gave it to another former student of mine who just graduated from UC Irvine, and he was looking for a project. I'm like, hey, rewrite this for me, and so he did. And it's fairly sophisticated. Like even if you do things like changing variable names, white space comments, all that stuff, it sees through the web of deception. It's actually fairly good at picking up plagiarized code. So don't plagiarize. The rule in this class for plagiarism is if you ever find yourself copying and pasting a block of code, like one line of code maybe is okay, but if you copy and paste a block of code, that's plagiarism, right? And you're free to use Google and Stack Overflow and learncpp.com. Good resources would be, you know, Google, Stack Overflow, learncpp.com, C++.com is okay for beginners, I guess. cppreference.com is my personal favorite. But it's a little bit technical. It's not necessarily the easiest for new programmers. This is probably a little better for newbies. Learn C++, also good for new programmers. C++.com. Stack Overflow answers for specific questions. Okay. Not allowed. Chegg. Course Hero. Similar. Plagiarism sites. Okay. So last year I had an issue with a student who posted their homework assignment. Like, hey, I need you to do my homework assignment for me, Mr. Chegg, please. And they posted the homework assignment, and then Chegg answered with actually not working. They thought it was working. It actually didn't pass any of the test cases, which was extra funny. But the student posted it onto Chegg with a screenshot from Putty. And just heads up, if you're going to do that, like erase your username off of it. You know what I mean? Like on Putty, it has your username like right there. And the dude posted a screenshot with his username on it, and I'm like, bro, because I have an account on Chegg specifically to Google students asking questions about my programming assignments, and it pisses me off. Like it's like I'm a very mild-mannered person. One of the few ways you can piss me off is asking for help on Chegg or Course Hero. Okay, and so yeah, you can probably imagine how that conversation went. Self-incrimination at its finest. You know what I mean? So yeah, please, under no circumstances, use Chegg or Course Hero. We have so much support for you guys here. Good resources. Top of the list is the Help Center on Discord. Right, we've got 24-hour support for when you get stuck. We've got experienced people, and C++. You know, like I said, it's not always your fault. You know, C++ has terrible error messages. You know, it's a known problem with the language. Like, compiler errors just don't make sense a lot of times. And so it's just normal to ask other people for help and get help. Everyone does it. But people, especially people coming right out of high school, that's a completely alien mindset. And they just want to do it themselves. And if they can't do it themselves, they take the 0 and then they drop, you know, because it's too hard or something, you know. And no, in computer science, you need to just get used to, like, hey, how do you do this? You know, how do you get the fourth letter out of a string? You know. Okay. Where else can you get help from a professor at 3 a.m.? Yeah. Well, I'm now teaching every day at 10 o'clock in the morning, so I'm probably not going to be up at 4 anymore. But 3 might be doable. I try to get 7 hours of sleep a night. Don't always. So yeah, don't expect a response from me after 3 anymore. Now that I'm teaching at Frozen State. Okay, so yeah, Help Center on Discord. There's also the Tutorial Center, and we've got Min, Corelli, and Corrente, our class TAs or tutors, whatever. And there's also Valenzuela and others in the TC. So the TC has been really supportive of the computer science program here on campus. It's like I'm not saying this to butter them up. I actually feel very, very grateful towards the school and towards the Tutorial Center in particular for offering a lot of support to the computer science program. I think it's one of the reasons why the computer science program here has had like 500% growth or some ridiculous number. In 2015, we had like 30 computer science majors. Now it's like 200, something like that. I don't know. It's and I think in large part it's because you if you get stuck, there's a lot of ways you can get unstuck. Okay, so TC is not open on the weekends. I think Corrente, Mincrelli, can you back me up on that? The TC is only weekdays. Is that right? And yeah, but the Help Center is open 24/7. Like I said, there's like a window around 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning when nobody's awake. But then again, you're probably not awake either, so it's not a big deal. They're open Saturday and Sunday too? Okay, all right, never mind. So, yeah, Tutorial Center, Zoom in, whatever, get help. Okay, open online Sundays 2 to 6. Okay, cool, nice. Yeah, so let's talk about the competency exam. The first competency exam is now up. It's on branches. And the way the competency exams work is they are a replacement for the old midterm and final system, which are stressful. They're stressful for the professor because you got to write them and then you got to grade them. And here at our school, if you have a final on a Friday, all the grades need to be in by Monday. And so, you know, if you've got hundreds of pages of finals, like it is a grind to, I mean, I'd still rather be grading them than taking them, you know what I mean? But it's a grind to grade hundreds of pages of finals, you know what I mean? I'd go to like a Starving Artist and wear out my pen grading papers by hand until I realized I could not do it by hand and automate it. So competency exams are the replacement for the old midterm and final systems. Rather than having these big comprehensive exams, instead you will get an exam focused on one topic. And the first one is going to be on, well, everything we've done in class so far. It's going to be on variables and algebra and input and output and branches especially. There is 3 multiple choice and 1 essay response, which will require 7 lines of code ish, somewhere in that ballpark. Okay. You have 20 minutes to do it. And that's for a reason. And the reason is because I want you to prepare for the test, not open up the test and then start frantically Googling for answers, which you can do. These resources are all, maybe not the tutorial center. Don't ask other people for help, but you can Google things. You can go onto Stack Overflow. All these websites are perfectly valid for you during the competency exam. It's fine. It's how real life programmers work. When we want to look something up, we usually go on Stack Overflow. And how do you do this? How do you do a displacement map in Unreal Engine? Yeah. To pass the exam, you get 100% of the multiple choice and fail the coding part. Yeah, sure. If that's your strategy. It's a risky strategy, though, because it's not easy. It's not designed to be easy. Yeah. So, yeah, the tutorial center will not help you on your exams, and the help center will not help you on your exams either. Don't ask other people for help. You got to do it yourself. Most empathetically, don't go on to Checker Course Hero. It makes me so angry when I see students posting exam questions on there. About a year and a half ago, I saw a student posting things onto Pastebin. It's like, bro, just take the damn test. You know what I mean? Just do it. It's one of the few ways that students can actually annoy me. I once wrote a letter of recommendation for a student and then caught him cheating on the final. It's like, oh, dude. Just wrote an essay about what a good guy you are, and then and you didn't even need to cheat because he was a good student anyway. It's like, I was seriously tempted to write to the Smith Camp people, because I wrote a recommendation for the Smith Camp scholarship at Fresno State. Just be like, don't approve him. Nope. Don't do it. But I didn't. Is there partial credit on the coding part? Nope. It's got to be working code. It's got to be working code. All right. So you can most certainly use the server during the test. Yeah. So type it up on the server, copy paste it into Canvas. That's a-okay. But you've got a 20-minute deadline, and that's deliberate, so that you need to be prepped before taking the test instead of prepping after the test. You know what I mean? So study up on branches. C++.com and LearnCPP.com are really designed for newbies. And I don't mean that in an offensive sense. And you're all first semester computer science students, right? So C++.com. I don't recommend in general. In general, I prefer what I put on there, cppreference.com, which looks like this. It's like a Wikipedia page. It's got everything in C++ in it, basically. It's highly exhaustive. It's a technical reference, and you're not going to know most of the stuff in it right now, and that's fine. So for where you're at right now, probably C++.com is better. You can go to the tutorial section, and you can go to control structures, which is if statements are included in that. And it's got a little essay on how the if statement works, and you can watch my old lecture videos. You can read my PowerPoint on it. It talks about indentation and line breaks and curly braces. And that's it. So there's a little essay about that big on if statements, probably worth going over. There's also learncpp.com, which is essentially a class. It's an entire class on C++. And where is it? Control flow. Here we go. If statements. So there's a little essay on if statements. You can also go through the Zybooks on conditionals. I would probably finish the Zybooks on conditionals prior to taking the competency exam, just to get your skills up to speed on it. Note that there as well, Zybooks. Okay, so there's a lot of resources for you to learn. You need to get up to speed. Try writing out a couple practice programs first. So go onto the server prior to starting the competency exam and see if you can come up with a program that will convert a number to a letter grade, right? So if the person types in 94.5, it'll output, you got an A in the class. Good job, you're a smart person. And if they type in 83.2, it'll say, you got a B. That's pretty good, I guess. And if they typed in 71, it's like, C's get degrees, which is something one of my Japanese classmates used to say when I ran into him. I was studying at the place that he worked at, IT, off Fresno and Shaw. And he was working there, and I'm sitting there studying my Genki, and he's just working right before the midterm. Dude, aren't you going to study? He's like, C's get degrees, man. Super, super unencouraging attitude towards life, in my opinion. So just write a little program. The thing on the competency exam isn't even as complicated as that. So just see if you can write a program, ideally without even looking at any references. If you type in a 45, it's like you get an F, better luck next time. Type in a 61, you get a D, that kind of stuff. Okay? If you can write that from your head in a reasonable amount of time, you should do fine on the competency exam. Okay? And prep on these topics. Okay? Now, how does it work? If you fail it, you cannot retake it. Instead, there's another competency exam. So the competency exams use a best of 4 system where there will be 4 versions of the test, one released each week. Your score is the best of the 4. If you get a 3 out of 4, you get a 4 out of 4. So once you pass a competency exam, you don't need to take the others. Just ignore them. You're fine. You're done. Okay. They'll probably pop up in Canvas. Just ignore them. It's fine. Yeah. And so if you get a 1 out of 4 on the first one and a 2 out of 4 on the second one, your grade will be a 2 out of 4. It'll be 50%. And if you get a 3 out of 4 on the third one, then your grade changes to 100%. In order to take 3 and take 4, you have to go to the tutorial center and book a time with Crente or Mincarelli, and they will go through branches with you in excruciating detail, and then they will give you the password for the 3rd take and the 4th take. Okay. So, can you take them for fun? Yeah, sure. I usually see students doing that. It's fine. The grades are not revealed on it until after the deadline, and the reason for that is so that you can't have a collusion, Russian collusion, where one student takes the competency exam, hits OK, sees the answers, and passes them to the friend. So the grades will be revealed after the deadline. Okay. So, yeah, and the window is a week. You have a week to take it. Once you start it, there's a 20-minute deadline. 20 minutes once you start. There's a 1-week window to start. Okay, so check the deadlines. Don't wait till the last minute because, if it's due at midnight or whatever on Tuesday, and you start at a minute before midnight, it cuts off at midnight. So Nico once did that on my game development. He tried to squeeze. It was a 2-hour-long final, and so he started a minute before the deadline, thinking he would get 2 extra whole hours to take the final, and it cut off. Poor Nico. Okay. So, I was like, bro, come on. He had a week to take it. He's getting every last bit of. He's trying to squeeze every last minute out of the window. So don't do that. Don't do that. Okay, that's competency exams. Okay, let's talk about chars real briefly. So a char it holds a single letter. So single quotes hold single letters. So if you want to hold, for example, the letter A, that is a char type. Chars are a type that holds single letters, and they don't have to be letters. They can be space, they can be a number, they can be a special character like this, which is a tab character. \T, you're like, oh, that's 2 letters. Nope, it's 1 letter. \T is a special character meaning tab. And there's also \N, which you might have seen before. That's the return key, the enter key. So, single quotes hold single letters. And double quotes hold 0 more letters. A double quote's used for a string. Single quote is used for a char. And the interaction between strings and chars is pretty straightforward. You can use .at to access individual chars in the string. Okay? So if you want to set a character, so this will set the first character. Everything in computer science counts from 0, not from 1. So the first character in a string is index 0. So this says set the first character, which is the A. set that equal to the value of ch. And so A is going to become \t, basically. Okay. A tab character. And then we're going to set ch to be s.at3. S.at3 is the fourth letter, not the third letter. 0, 1, 2, 3. It's D. Not C, D. Okay, so then if you compile this and run it, you will see that that tab character, that \t turns into a tab, an actual tab character. So it's tab, B, C, D, F, G, and then ch becomes D, which is index 4. Okay. Any questions about this? I think a couple of the books require this. It's one of the downsides to skipping chapter 2. But if we didn't do this, we'd be on branches next week, and we're starting loops already, and so the books would be lagging like 2 weeks behind the class. Or I could just make the deadlines shorter, which I'm pretty sure you guys don't want to see, because they're fairly substantial. I don't think you guys want to have like half the time to do the same amount of work on books. It'd be a little brutal. Okay, so that's the char type. That's a new type that we've learned now. We got ints, floats, doubles, strings, bools. Now chars. Chars hold a single character. And when I say a single letter, but it can be a number, it could be a special character. It could be the beep character. The beep character. Like that. I have putty set to ignore beeps, so it doesn't do anything. But if I didn't have it set to ignore, it'd go bloom, and the title bar would flash. Okay, so those are chars. Let's talk about loops. So cheating is bad. Okay. All right. So new homework is triangle testing. Internet resources. Cheating's not allowed. That's, I'm sure, news to everybody. Cheating's not allowed. When I was at UCSD, I was a TA for a class that a quarter of the class was caught cheating, and I had to sit in on all those interviews, and that was a brutal process. My lord. Like, so many people just turned in these giant assignments that were letter for letter the same as everybody else's. Didn't even bother changing the comments or variable names. And even those people that just changed the comments and variable names, we found, because we're not dumb, we're computer science majors. You're going to have a bad time, MK. No, the MK is Mr. Mackey, right? The counselor at South Park. So, Competency Exams. Chars hold single letters. Char is a new type that holds single letters. And then finally, we're going to talk about loops. Okay. If you cheat in Kearney's class, you're going to have a bad time. Yeah. All right. How would you use Vim to rename all ints? There's a search and replace feature in Vim that you can look up. Okay. So let's talk about, let's go to the PowerPoint here. And before we get into loops, and we're just going to go at a very high level conceptual thing today. We're actually going to go into the syntax and start coding them on Friday. I just kind of want to introduce the concept of a loop to you guys first. So in all of computer science, there's only 6 things. There's only 6 things in all of computer science. Computer science is oftentimes considered to be very hard, very difficult, but it's actually easier than like Japanese in the sense that there's actually a lot less to memorize. In Japanese, you have to memorize 40 to 50 vocabulary words per unit, which is about 2 weeks. So it works out to 20 a week, but in reality, she tests you after the first week. So you have to kind of learn 40 to 50 new vocabulary words in a week, and then you get kind of a week to reinforce it, and then again the next week, over and over again. It's a never-ending grind to memorize stuff. In computer science, there's only 6 things that you have to learn. And there's a couple of variants here, like for a variable, you have to learn what an int is and a float is and things like that. But overall, the amount of terminology and the amount of stuff to memorize is a lot less than computer science. It's grammar is very regular. There's no irregular verbs or conjugations and things like that. Overall, computer science, I think, is a lot easier to learn than a language. Maybe it's less forgiving, if you drop a particle or something in Japanese, maybe they'll understand you anyway, but in computer science, if you drop a semicolon, your compiler's like, nope, just going to stop you right there, champ. So, what are the 6 things in computer science? The 6 main tools, the 6 things that everybody learns. First, make a variable. You guys know how to do that. Int x equals 0. Float f equals 5.3. Char ch equals s. Single quote, s close, single quote. There's variables and types of the variables. There's 3 things, right? There's the type, the name, and the initial value. Okay. Second thing in computer science, set a variable to some math expression. Algebra. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus. That's it. So adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, modulus. And yeah, that's about it. That's algebra. You guys know that all already, I think. At least the compiler tells you what you did wrong. Yeah, whereas in Japanese, you're going to get strange looks of confusion. Yeah, I was at a ramen shop last Monday, and I said, ima ga daisuki desu. And the guy stared at me funny. I was supposed to say, ima no ga daisuki desu. So what I told him was, now is my favorite. He's like, and then he kind of figured out what I was going to say. It's like, oh, you like tonkotsu ramen. Oh, okay. Yeah. Nice. What I was supposed to say was ima noga. The thing that I had right now was my favorite. Instead, I said, now is my favorite. So, it's at Moss's Ramen, which is my favorite ramen place in Fresno. It's near S21 on, what was it? First and Bullard, something like that. Okay. So, input and output, CN, Cout. CN reads from the keyboard. You've got an input buffer. There's characters coming in at you. CN will grab the characters one at a time until it hits white space. Then it converts the thing into the type. And if it works, it sticks into the variable. If it doesn't work, it sets the fail bit. Outputting to the screen, Cout, it just takes the variable and pushes it to the screen. So you know how to do that. Number 4 is what we just finished, the unit on conditionals, on branches. So to do either one thing or another, right? That's where all of your intelligence in a program comes from. For example, if the grade variable is over 90, print you got an A. The grade variable is over 100, you got an A+. If the grade variable is under 50, you get an F. Or under 60, you get an F. So that's an if statement for 4, if, else. And now we're on to number 5. So it's week 3 of college, and we're already 5/6 of the way of everything in computer science. There's only one other thing to learn, functions, and then towards the end of the semester we'll learn classes. Classes don't actually do anything new per se. They're just a way of packaging these things up in a slightly different format. So probably by the end of week 4 or something, you're actually going to know everything in computer science. Which sounds weird because computer science is a 4-year degree, and then 2 years of grad school to get your master's degree, or 4 years to get your PhD, or 8 years to get your PhD, depends on who you are. Maybe a year to get your master's, it depends. What the hell do you spend the rest of your time doing if we know everything in 4 weeks? Well, you use computer science, right? You use computer science. You take classes on making a game engine, or making a database, or doing facial recognition. You don't keep learning new stuff. This process we're going through right now of learning new syntax and being confused by it and forgetting semicolons, all that you're done with basically by the end of this semester. CSI 41 introduces some new stuff as well as far as the language goes. You'll basically be done with that by the end of CSI 41. And you can get a job as a junior programmer. That's what I did. I took CSI 40 and 41, or the equivalent, at UC San Diego, and then I got a job as a junior programmer. And, I didn't know everything, and it's quite inexperienced. But I got paid to code, and it made me a lot better. So, if you ever get an opportunity to work in industry, I would take it. It's really good for you. Okay, so conceptually, we're going to learn today how to print hello world 5 times. Okay? So, this is a concept called a loop. A loop is when you repeat yourself. 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 Okay, so I'll repeat. A loop is when a loop is when you repeat yourself. In C++, there's 3 different loops. Technically, you can get away with a loop by just copying and pasting your code. Like if I give you an assignment to print hello world 100 times, I've had a student do this before. They copied and pasted 100 times. Touche, you know. But yeah, if I give you an assignment to print hello world X times and X is a variable that the user has to enter, you can't do that. So you really do need a loop for it. Recursion's the best loop. Yeah, that's another kind of loop that we're not going to talk about right now. So we're going to do for loops. We're going to do while loops. There's also something in C++ called a sonic loop. Nice. There's also in C++ something called a do-while loop. I rarely write a do-while loop. They just don't come up that often for me. I don't teach them. I actually wrote one legitimately and non-ironically in a code I wrote a couple months ago. And after I finished it, I was like, oh, you know, I haven't written one of these things in, like, for reals, like 20 years or something like that. So they do exist, and they're in Zybooks. The Zybooks will cover it. Like I said, I cover the most important things. I cover the really important stuff, and I hammer them over and over again so that you become a competent and capable computer science person. That's my teaching philosophy, is to focus on the important stuff and do it over and over again. Everything you need to know to build a program, you'll know, and you'll know it really well. And that's why I think the students coming out of our program here are actually pretty darn good. Like when they transfer to other institutions, they usually do really, really well. Because rather than learning a little bit of this and a little bit of that and never using it again, your brain goes like this. Poof, it's gone. If you learn something once and you never code it, poof, it's gone. Rewrite one program using it, poof, it's gone. You have to keep repeating over and over again, right? You're going to be doing branches the rest of your computer science life. You're going to be doing loops the rest of your computer science life. Do while loops, I don't use them. And if I don't use them, I don't teach them. Simple. Zybooks fills in the details. Okay. So, switch statements as well. Yeah, I don't teach switch statements for that reason. You can see it in Zybooks. You can see what the syntax looks like. I don't teach it. I don't use it. Okay. I focus on the important stuff that I do. So there's 2 loops we're gonna learn about. There's for loops and while loops. And even though you can make a for loop act like a while loop, and you can make a while loop act like a for loop, conceptually, big picture, this is what I want you guys to get into your heads. There's a divider, and the dividing line is this. If you know how many times you're going to be doing something over and over again, like if I give you an assignment to print hello world 100 times, you would use a for loop. Okay? For loops are used when you know how many times you're going to repeat something. And that number in red there, we'll go through the syntax on Friday. You don't have to worry about it too much. But that number right there, there's a pattern. There's a pattern you follow every time when writing a for loop. That number right there in red, if you want to make it print hello world 50 instead of 100 times, you change that 100 to a 50. Done. If you're to print something 1,000 times, you change that 100 to 1,000. Done. That number in red there is how many times the loop repeats. Dividing line, you know how many times it's going to run. That number right there is how many times it's going to run. That's a for loop. We use while loops when we do not know how many times a loop's going to run. For example, if you're going to be asking the user to enter names to add to a wedding list, you don't know how many names the user is going to type in. They'll just keep typing in names. And you just keep going until they hit done or something like that. So for that, you use a while loop. If you know how many times something's going to run, for loop. If you don't know, while loop. That's the dividing line in my brain. So in the previous class, I was joking about Bethesda, and I joke about Bethesda a lot because their games are so buggy. And so I said, you know, in a video game, you don't know how long your game is going to run for, right? It just keeps running until the user goes to the main menu and hits quit. But in Bethesda, maybe they use a for loop for it. So it runs for a certain amount of time, and when it hits the end, it quits. Which would explain a lot about, you know, Skyrim and things like that. So YY100p, yeah, easy. Big brain, 100 hello worlds. Actually, you're going to do 101 if you do YY100p. You're going to get 101 hello worlds. Yeah. So if you're going to be in a video game has a main loop, and the main loop just runs over and over again until the user hits quit. It'll do things like read from the keyboard and the mouse and the network, and then it will update the physics of everything in the world. It'll run the AI engine on any AI in there. it'll draw the current frame to the screen, and then it'll do it again. And so in a video game, it will just keep running. You'll use a while loop for that. It'll keep running until the user gives the quit command, then it bails out. Okay. So you're reading from a file, while loop. You just keep reading from the file until you hit the end. Okay, we're done. You usually don't know in advance a lot of things. You know, anything involving user input or reading from a socket, a network connection. You don't know how long it's going to go for. How long am I going to be connected to the World of Warcraft server for? I don't know. You don't know in advance. But if you want to do something like send to the World of Warcraft server 100 letter A's or something, then I would write a for loop for that. For and I equals 0, I is less than 100, I equals plus, print the letter A to the server or whatever. So when I need to do something a fixed number of times that I know, for loop. If I don't know, while loop. And that's the big picture for today. Any questions? We will go into the actual syntax on Friday, and we'll have lab time on Friday. I'll answer your questions about triangle testing on Friday. Try and get it done now, so if you get stuck, you can get unstuck on Friday. But most of it's going to be spent doing loops. Okay? All right, sounds good. Thanks, you guys, for coming out, and get cracking on the competency exam, side books, and triangle testing. I'll see you guys on Friday. All right, thanks, y'all.